Let's see. I've really got to get my future scripts in order. So which one should I be doing this week? I've been thinking about the first Transformers live-action film, but I just got interested in watching Earthspark, so maybe I should hold off on that.
Tenchi.
Meh. I've been thinking about doing another Airbender episode, but Ninja Turtles is just such a huge series I need to do more with as well. And there's that villain two-parter that I've been meaning to write for at least a week now.
Tenchi.
Oh no.
Hello there.
Welp, I guess we were going to be coming back to the series at one point anyway. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, I am your ever-friendly Pokeprof, and welcome back to Fascinating Fiction. It's Tenchi time again, and this time around we're going back to the beginning of the series, the original OVAs that spawned the sprawling chaotic harems over 5 times over at this point. And we're taking it a bit slower this time, if only because I kinda realized watching the previous videos I've done on this series that I've kinda jumped into the deep end without warning. While yes, a lot of the things that I've talked about would make sense to those who have actually watched the series, there's some other things that are just going to be flying over most folks' heads. So let's do this a bit better structured. And for those of you who are new to Tenchi or know little about it, buckle up, you're in for a wild ride. So, as a series, Tenchi actually starts off fairly slow. We're introduced to our title character, Tenchi, a young teenager who's currently living with his grandfather and training underneath him. It's never explicitly stated what exactly he's training for, but this being an older anime, it's safe to assume that because is an appropriate answer for why he's doing this. Regardless, Tenchi ends up going into the one place he's been told since childhood not to go, the resting shrine of a demon that was sealed away centuries ago by his ancestor named Yosho. Of course, we need plot to happen, so Tenchi of course opens it up.
Okay, I'm out of here. Huh?
I'll give the boy this, he's taking being grabbed by a zombie pretty well. In all seriousness, turns out that the demon in the shrine is actually a space pirate named Ryo-oki, a loud, boisterous woman who loves sake, fighting, sake, Tenchi, and sake. The first episode here is mostly her quote-unquote playing with Tenchi, which results in the blowing up his entire school, as well as Tenchi getting his own legally distinct lightsaber and becoming a Jedi. Trust me, as much as I wish that last part was a joke, I'm actually completely serious here. But waking up Ryo-oki has more consequences than just having a girl with 80s glam rock hair crushing on him, as they catch the attention of Ayeka, the princess of the planet Jirai, who also has her younger sister Sasami in tow. Trying to explain that whole bucket of worms is something I'll get into once we get through things just a little bit more, but what you need to know for now is that Ryo-oki attacked Jirai centuries ago, and Ayeka has been on the search for her and her brother Yosho ever since, which, as you might recall, is Tenchi's ancestor. I'll let you do the math on that point. With a single breather episode to develop both Tenchi and Ayeka's relationships, as well as introduce Ryo-oki, the cabinet mascot of the series, who can also transform into a spaceship for the cast, we get thrown into the introduction of Mihoshi, a first-class officer of the Galaxy Police. People who've seen my Tenchi Universe episode of Fascinating Fiction will recall how I went on a rant about her character, and I still hold to that fact, as while Mihoshi is ditzy and scatterbrained in these episodes, she's not the out-and-out idiot she was in that series. Regardless, the crew of girls living with Tenchi is now up to 4, 5 if you count Ryo-oki, which we will. It's with the 5th and 6th episode of this OVA that things get crazy, and in a weird way. You see, one of the major things that this series does, hell, now that I'm thinking about it, this entire franchise does, is that they'll take what you know about something and then do this big, grand reveal. Sometimes this changes a character entirely. Sometimes it just adds more chaos to the mix, and other times it's just plain weird. But it really all depends. In this case, we get the villain of this particular OVA, Kagato, and find out he's the reason Ryoko attacked Jirai all those years ago, mind controlling her thanks to the gems on her wrists. We also find out that Kagato is searching for the greatest power in the universe, thinking Tenchi's lightsaber is the key to getting to it. This is also where the grand reveal of Tenchi's grandfather turning out to be Yosho happens, who's in line for the throne of Jirai, which means that Tenchi's in line for succession thanks to being a direct descendant. Do you see what I mean by things starting to get crazy here? Or has it already gone crazy and I've just gotten used to it at this point? Things only get worse as Tenchi and family attack Kagato, who had kidnapped Ryoko. Outpowering them, Kagato apparently kills Tenchi, and that's enough for Ryoko to go crazy, breaking free and joining up with everyone else to take down Kagato or die trying. This leads us to finding a new character in Washu, a mad scientist who has been trapped in an alternate dimension by Kagato that Mihoshi somehow gets into. She's also Ryoko's mom, Kagato's teacher, and well, we'll get to the next bit of what she is in just a little while. But as it turns out, Tenchi didn't die. He kinda got pulled off into another dimension by tsunami. You remember that power that Kagato was searching for? That tsunami, or more appropriately, the spaceship she's kind of the central mind for. This is the problem when you named characters and items that the characters are using as the same thing, and this wouldn't be the first time in this series either. You remember that lightsaber Tenchi has? It's also called Tenchi. Regardless of names or whatnot, turns out Tenchi here is more than just a Jedi, he's a chosen one Jedi. Once all this plot comes to a head with Kagato, Tenchi is able to do something that was thought impossible in his world, forming the Lighthawk wings. The wings are something that in this universe are an incredibly powerful defensive features that can only be used on Jirai's spaceships. Tenchi kind of breaks all the rules here for being able to use them as a human, as well as being able to form them into a super lightsaber capable of cutting not just through Kagato, but also Kagato's entire spaceship. The initial OVA ends with the group all heading back to Earth, living together as a family. So, I'll be entirely honest here, the initial story isn't that bad. It's got some craziness here or there, though what series doesn't have it by the end of its story? What really hurts things comes down to the fact that the initial length of 6 episodes, and how much the anime wants to tell the audience before their running time ends, kind of makes things go super fast. We see this in particular with Washu's introduction, since she not only goes and spells out to the audience just how she knows all the things she does, but she also goes and tells us about Ryoko's true emotions and just how some of the things in the universe work that she feels might not be clear to us. It doesn't feel so much like a story is being told, and more like someone basically just saying, "Oh, I am capable of this for reasons," like you would see some kids might do in a game or something like that. It's not a huge problem, especially for how the rest of this initial OVA is handled, but it's apparent and I feel like that it hurts the story. Which is why the second OVA of the series actually works out a lot better than this one here. While I won't go over the episodes bit by bit like I did previously, the flow of the story and what crazy things it wants to do feels better because they're taking their time to actually explain things instead of just going, "Oh, this is a thing," and leaving the audience confused as they run off to the next plot point. Some of the things that we get to see include Washu having a family before Ryoko, explaining why she created her daughter in the first place, Ryo-oki getting the ability to transform into a human body, which reveals that Ryo-oki does indeed love Tenchi on the same level as the rest of the girls, officially making her a member of the harem, and the introduction of a villain in Dr. Clay, who, while a bit more of a joke character than Kagato, does actually have a bit more of an impact on the series than the initial villain did. The main big what the heck thing that you'll probably run into here is the grand reveal for Tsunami. You know, that super powerful spaceship and also computer mind for said spaceship that was this ultimate power. Yeah, they're kind of fused together with Ayaka's sister Sasami, meaning when Sasami grows up, the two will become one and the same. And while it's definitely one of those off the wall, why did you do this kind of thing that will become, let's be entirely honest, more common in Tenchi as we continue onwards, this is also probably the best one of the bunch, if only because they allow an entire episode to itself to explain things, as well as having hints that this was the case back in the original series. We also get hints about future episodes as well, with characters that we get some peeks at while dealing things with Dr. Clay. Which actually brings me to the subject of the third collection of episodes, and the problem they pose. To state as a reminder, after the second collection of episodes were finished, there was a 10-year gap where this OVA kind of just didn't exist. Tenchi was still being made and was seen as fairly profitable, but it wasn't until one particular series started airing that Tenchi came back into the interest of fans to get the third set of episodes greenlit. Yep, it's come back. The horror that is Tenchi GXP. Now, what exactly is the problem that these episodes pose, outside of being far too related to GXP? Well, it's mostly just a change in style and voice cast. While the animation style used for the series is close enough that I don't think most fans would mind the difference, the main actual problem comes in the voices that the characters have. While I'm all for an increase in quality for the voice acting, either thanks to the direction being better or the actor skill improving, it's still quite a whiplash to go from this
Why are you only saying this to me? Something must have happened between you and that woman.
to this.
Even Kageto made sure to stay away from the devil princess of Jirai.
And no, for those of us anime nerds out there, you're not hearing things. That is Izzy's voice actor from Digimon, given to us by Mona Marshall as the new Ryoko. And I'm sorry, even for how bad old Ryoko's lines were delivered, the voice there was clearly that of a mature woman who you could tell has seen some things. Whenever I hear Mona Marshall, I'm half expecting her to start saying prodigious and calling for Tentomon. It's this part of the anime though that things just kinda go off the rails. Either I'm guessing not enough happened in the last OVA, or it was moving too slow for the creator's liking, or whatever, but from the very start we get so much thrown at us. How crazy do things get? The second episode introduces a woman who is identical in appearance to Tenchi's dead mom, who then turns out to be his sister. It's then firmly established that because people from Jirai can be centuries old, anyone in the Tenchi family is long-lived to the point where the high school reunion that Tenchi's sister ends up going to is involving people in their 80s. This is also after Tenchi's dad tried to trick everyone into thinking it was Tenchi's mom back from the dead and tried to kiss his daughter. This anime is freaking weird, but there is a bigger story that they're wanting to tell here, and sadly it's all mismanaged in these episodes, with the audience getting a simple hint that something weird is going to happen at the very start of the episodes, and then nothing actually important happens plot-wise, or at least anything that would actually involve the main cast and pushing forward a strong narrative. So to actually explain this in a way that hopefully wouldn't leave you all confused, let me to try and untie these crossed threads and present it in a way that is at least semi-understandable. Taking place at the beginning of time and existence within the Tenchi universe, there existed 3 goddesses known as the Chosen. Being all-powerful, they created not just the universe, but several dimensions along with it, spreading life amongst the cosmos. However, one question nagged at the 3 goddesses, something that for all of their power, they had no answer to. If they themselves created the universe and the dimensions within it, where did they come from? who had created them. It was something that consumed the three goddesses, unable to find the answer. Eventually, after some decision, the three decided that they would each try a different method to bring forth a being even more powerful than themselves, wanting to learn just what kind of entity it would be. The eldest of these sisters chose to seal away her godly powers and mind into gemstones, having to learn everything from the ground up. Her reasoning for this was that, as a goddess who could know almost anything with a thought, she believed that such a worldview was limiting what ideas she might have. By having to work without that knowledge, she would think of things that would never occur to her as an almighty being. Thus was the decision of the goddess Washu. The middle sister, being more in tune with the races and peoples that the three had created, decided to see if somehow that life would eventually become the godlike figure that they were searching for. Using her powers, she planted seeds that would eventually create a new type of life, the Trees of Jirai. Eventually, the first emperor of Jirai found the goddess, who had been sleeping in her wait for so long that she herself had started to become a tree. Seeing his potential, she thought that his descendants could be the superior life that the sisters sought. Vowing to protect him and his descendants as a patron goddess, she became the first and eldest of the royal trees of Jirai. Thus was the decision of the goddess Tsunami. The youngest sister, not satisfied with the idea that they themselves couldn't create this being or will it into existence, instead focused on using pure chaos to bring this god to light. She took the fabric of the multiverse, distorting and mangling it, disrupting the harmony that she and her sisters had originally created. While she never out and out destroyed anything, she would constantly see what else she could shift into the balance of the universe to create a being that would surpass them all. Thus was the decision of the goddess Tokimi. And it's the end result of this experiment that is not only the entire history of this show, but Tenchi himself, as the final episode of this OVA shows that Tenchi is indeed the superior being that the goddess have been looking for, his very awakening into his own godlike power being enough to wipe out a galaxy with a single motion and threatening to destabilize the entire known multiverse. It's only through Tenchi remembering about the rest of the girls he cares about so much, and the three goddesses rewinding time back to the first episode of this collection of episodes, do things get repaired. Mind you, everything but the destruction of the galaxy happens again because of reasons. Trust me when I say it's easier for me to just tell you that, instead of actually trying to explain who actually caused it all over again. I think if me just explaining all this hasn't proved my point already, the original Tenchi Muyo series is kind of insane. And if I'm honest, we're not even halfway through it all. But I'm stopping here for a couple of reasons. One is the fact that I'm pretty sure my own brain just turned in mush about 3 paragraphs ago explaining everything. And the second is the fact that the rest of the series never got dubbed. While Tenchi continued to go on and get more and more OVAs added to the original story, with the most recent episodes coming out in 2020, the people who own the rights to the franchise just never decided to dub them. Now, I don't know the reasoning behind it, be it the popularity, the voice actors, or what have you, but I feel like this is a good stopping point, or heck, even ending point, because I'm honestly struggling like hell with the script to make it even halfway understandable, and I still don't think I succeeded here. I also feel like I've got to apologize a bit to Watanabe, the anime director from Tenchi Muyo GXP. While I've been told that he's still over the top and crazy when it comes to his style of anime, after trying to understand everything in the original Tenchi series with the original creator being at the wheel, I'm willing to say that he's the reason for so much of the insanity and overall craziness that I got exposed to in that series, and why nothing makes any sense. That's honestly what I'm starting to think about when it comes to the man who made Tenchi, Masaki Kajishima. A creator who had such eager ideas for his wild, sprawling world for his characters, but none of the actual patience or story know-how to present it in a way that wasn't overwhelming. In many ways, it feels like some competitive kids who are making up stories to play around with, always trying to make up bigger and bigger stuff to outdo the other kids. In this case, it's a story done by a man who's wanting to have as many wives as possible, considering how many of his characters ends up in relationships like that are in the double digits. Hilariously enough, even with me saying that and saying just how nuts this series is, I can't deny it's had an impact. Not only has Tenchi gone on to produce so many different versions of the series, with a sequel to GXP airing this year, my god, but if it wasn't for Tenchi, anime might not be as big of a thing as it is now in the States. Tenchi is one of those big anime like Sailor Moon or Dragon Ball Z that really paved the way for future hits. And you can see some of its influence today with even more modern shows. Like, who do you think inspired Ida's original design from the Owl House? In the end, I'll state flat out that this version of Tenchi, despite being the original, is definitely not for me. I'm not even sure I'll be even looking into the rest of the OVAs unless you guys really want me to deep dive into it. Which if I do, I'm going to be making a freaking spreadsheet for all the characters that we gotta keep track of, because the amount that we're already trying to have to keep straight is just getting silly. And this is coming from me, the My Hero Academia fan. Regardless, if you're into wacky hijinks, are just here for some of the more interesting or wild ideas, or just an old fan of the series, I say it's well worth your time. For everyone else, I'd only suggest watching this if you're really wanting to undo the pretzel that is the Tenchi OVAs. With all that said, I hope I've done a good job to entertain you, and I'll do my best to do so again in the future. Hopefully you'll follow along with my content by subscribing and doing all those other things that gives us YouTubers life. If you wish to support me a bit more, I do have a Patreon where you can get access to bonus content. But until next time, stay frosty.